The winter storms are over, the sun is out, and the visitors are finally coming to enjoy the house, the gardens, and the wildlands. But alas, there simply aren't enough visitors to pay the bills here and to support our £3 million backlog of repairs.
And we're not alone. Lots of historic houses are struggling with much higher costs of insurance, and ours has tripled to over £60,000 in 5 years. And they're struggling with repairs. We've spent around £200,000 each year, and utilities. Our electric and heating bill alone is over £70,000.
These are eye-watering amounts of money, and it means that Mapperton, alas, makes a big loss every year, and we keep having to sell important heritage assets to fund these losses. In the past, this has even included family portraits, cottages, and sometimes even land. And now there really isn't enough left to support the huge costs of this place.
And Mapperton really does have one major disadvantage. We are over an hour away from any big town or city, and this makes it so much harder to get people to visit. Other houses which are close to cities can attract 50 to 100,000 visitors a year. We're lucky to get just 15,000.
It's one of the big problems here, and that is why we've gone digital, and we now share the joys and challenges of this extraordinary place with our wonderful international YouTube audience. And over 150,000 of you have now subscribed around the world.
And some of you have gone further and become patrons and donors, which helps enormously by supporting our huge backlog of repairs. I mean, with your help, we've been able to repair the 18th century lead eagles and put them back on their pillars at the front of the house. We've been able to restore the 18th century pool, which was full of leaks and frogs. And recently, we've been able to start repairing the orangery as well as develop our various nature restoration projects.
But there is so much more to do, and we have to tackle this £3 million repairs backlog. So please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Mapperton Live.
Your support will mean that we can actually tackle the £3 million repair backlog, and that Mapperton can continue to be enjoyed by our community and by the future generations to come.
Now, some people might be thinking that Mapperton looks pretty good at the moment with the clematis and the wisteria and all the wonderful colour. Well, let's actually go and have a look at some of the things that need doing. We are standing here outside the orangery at Mapperton, and this magnificent building was put in by my grandfather in the 50s. But that's now quite a long time ago, and things are falling apart. We've got some really significant works that we've got to do to this building. In particular, many of these windows are now so rotted through that we've actually got to replace the whole thing. You can see the very first one we've just started doing here, but there's probably 6 to 8 of them that have got to be replaced because over time they have just dilapidated and rotted through. Estimated bill for all of this, probably around £20,000. This is our magnificent pergola. It's one of the centerpieces of the garden, and it's got this wonderful wisteria that is going to be coming out soon, but it needs a lot of work doing to it. You can see that many of these timbers are now rotten. Some of these columns are at such an odd angle that really we need to lift them up and put a new base in and do major repairs. Estimated cost for repairing the pergola, £30,000 to £50,000. It's a lot of work. I'm never quite sure whether these are herons or storks, but these wonderful pieces of garden statuary needs some urgent repair. I mean, this one has lost its beak altogether. And actually, as you go around the garden, you can see that there's really quite a lot of stone repair needed, not just to the statuary, but also to the floor itself, where we've got all of these stones that are starting to break up. Some of these become a trip hazard. It's particularly bad in the area of the Fountain Court. I think we've probably got 20,000 of stone repairs to do here. Of course, there's also Mapperton House itself, where there is no shortage of stone repair required. You can see how over time the wind and the rain has just got into the hamstone. Here it's actually starting to carve it out, and there are pieces that are just coming off. This is just a tiny patch, but all over the house you can see areas that need fixing. We're probably talking, if we did all of it, something like £100,000. This is our wonderful 17th century north stable block. It's a building that we've been keen to restore for years and years, but there's a huge cost associated with this one. You can see bits of stonework that are just coming off here already, but that's really not the main issue. The main issue is the interior. Rain has started to get through the roof, it's getting into the floorboards, bits of ceiling are falling down. All in all, there's a tremendous amount to do here. We did have an estimate for doing all of this, and it was over £500,000, £500,000. So it's one that we want to get to. We want to turn it into a wonderful exhibition space and place for people to come and enjoy, but we've got to raise quite a lot of funds to do that. This is a project that we keep trying to get off the ground. This is the Coltley Barn. It's a magnificent old farm building. It was operating until the early 1990s, but it's now completely collapsed, and that's because the ground here is very unstable. So coming in here, you can see that, well, it's probably not very safe to come in, Chris, so I would stick where you are there, but you can see the roof has totally come down, the timbers are all off, there's huge cracks in the walls. At some point the whole thing is just going to fall over, which is incredibly sad because this was and could be a beautiful building again. We have had some designs to bring it back to life, to turn it back into a barn or even into a house. But again, we're talking about £500,000 minimum just to get it back standing on its feet. We're standing here at Coltley. We're outside what used to be cottages, if you can believe it. The cottages used to go on that way. Part of it was knocked down to make way for a barn. You can see the barn has totally collapsed. The stonework here is in trouble. There's a huge amount that we need to do to this building to bring it back, either to be useful for the estate or as cottages. Estimates at least another £500,000. We are at Marsh Farm, and one of the things that people may not realise is that we actually have a legal responsibility to maintain historic buildings here at Mapperton, and that doesn't just include the main house, it includes the farm buildings, in particular what are called listed buildings, buildings that are registered as being incredibly important to our heritage. And that includes this barn, which urgently needs work doing to it. You can see how the vegetation is just sort of making its way in. We've got all sorts of stonework problems on that side. Really what we need to do is to convert this barn so that it can have another life, possibly as somewhere for people to stay or as offices. We're not sure yet, but it's a big project and there's a lot of work to be done there. Looking behind us, we also have a series of thatched cottages, and just putting the thatch back on that roof cost us about £30,000 a few years ago. We've got another farm called Porton. There's a huge barn there. It's a wonderful barn. It's, you know, a couple of 100 years old, probably 300 years old, and it's got this enormous thatch all over it. Of course, the thatch needs replacing. That thatch on its own for that one barn, even though that barn doesn't generate any income at all, is going to be another £50,000. We've got cottages that need rethatching, another £20,000 to £30,000. And these are all things, as I say, that we must do. What's more, it's not just this barn here, and I reckon to convert this properly, probably another £500,000 to do the job that we want to do. But we've also got some stone buildings this way where the roof is in real trouble. This is one of our modern agricultural barns, and this is okay. Sometimes it's only when you get to the back of things that you spot problems. And if we look over here, we've got the original stone buildings, the cow stalls that are part of Marsh Farm. These are important listed buildings, but look at the state of this roof. The slates are all coming off, the timbers are rotten. The whole thing probably needs to come off and have all of the timbers replaced. I suspect this is probably something like a £20,000 project, and it needs doing pretty urgently. Now, this is an example of a building where we have done some recent repairs. We replaced the entire slate roof on this important cart shed. This is one of the buildings that would have been a really important part of the farm. These days, it's redundant, it's not used for anything. And yet, at the same time, we are under an obligation to repair these buildings. That roof, I think it was about £20,000, maybe 5 years ago. How much does it generate for the estate each year? Absolutely nothing. Julie and I have done a lot to repair the fabric of this building inside Mapperton House itself. We did a big restoration project where we put in completely new plumbing, new hot and cold water system. We've also redecorated all of the rooms on the top floor so that we can now have people coming to stay, particularly for our grand historic tours and other events. What we haven't done a lot of so far is restoration of the wonderful pictures and furniture and tapestries that we have here. And there's quite a lot to be done. Quite a lot of pictures need cleaning. Quite a lot of pieces of furniture need bits of repair done. And the tapestries, we know, need a lot of work. You can look at this. When we had a young Labrador growing up, his favourite thing was to come and chew the corner. So all the bottom of this got replaced. But you can see how really the thing is falling apart in key areas here. We've done a quick look round the house at all the various bits of restoration that are needed to things like the tapestries, we think it's about £100,000.
Gosh, I didn't really take it all in fully until we actually filmed this, that, you know, when you hear that £3 million backlog of repairs, it's...
well, all these buildings
yeah.
that need repairing.
Yeah, it's, it is hard, and we do our best, but there's only two of us.
We do our best, and we are incredibly grateful for the support that we get
yeah.
from our international viewers. Thank you for watching Mapperton Live, and please join us again next week. If you'd like to find out more about becoming a patron, please go to patreon.com/Mapperton Live.